So, first thing I want to do is cover the agenda, right? So we're here for 90 minutes, okay? We're going to take a break somewhere in between that, so somewhere in the middle. We're going to take a 10-minute break. But again, there's a lot of information to cover. I can take any one of these topics and really spend pretty much an entire day on it. So to cover all of this within 90 minutes is going to be pretty difficult, but we're going to try to give you the top points in each one of these topics. So number one, what is the Furtado group? What is it we do, right? And then secondly, is going to share some design strategies with you. So all too often we go into, somebody will call us in. It could be a house that's almost a brand new house that's finished and almost at the end of construction. And there's a lot of things that we can tweak. So we're going to talk about design strategies that are actually going to give you improved efficiency, but how quickly you can actually have the house listed and sell it, right? And also, what we always go after, we use this term, you probably heard it before, it's wow factor, right? So how do we create that wow factor without breaking the bank? Secondly, or thirdly, we're going to say that it's not only about creating a really awesome looking home, but it's also mitigating your competition. How do you mitigate your competition? You differentiate the home. So there's going to be certain things that we always do almost consistently in every house to really help differentiate it so that we have a lot less competition, and that way we can actually list it for more money and sell it faster. And then fourthly, when we go through an evaluation process, there's a couple of formulas that we have. We'll share those with you. Some of them are even proprietary. Certain things, criteria we look for in a house, right? So, and then, quick question. How many people actually in the room, just a quick poll, that really came today, really more for ideas that they're looking at doing a renovation in their existing primary home, and we're looking for design ideas? I'm just curious. Show of hands. Okay, cool. All right. How many people were actually interested in flipping properties? Okay, cool. And then, again, one of the things we're going to be talking, so we're going to, when it comes to flipping properties, like I said, there's a lot of good content there, but again, we'll do a separate course just on that where we actually break down into numbers. Here we're going to give you more conceptual, high-level stuff. Now, I'm curious, how many people actually are interested in building a home? So I'm talking right from start to finish. Okay, got it? Yeah. Wow. So, and are you doing this as, let's say, for your primary home? Okay, got it. And how many people are actually looking to build as a purpose of an investment with the intentions of selling? Okay. So, now that leads me to another question. I promise I won't barge you much. But, so how many people actually get our weekly newsletter? Like actually found out about this course through our weekly newsletter? Okay, a couple. How many found out through social media? How many didn't hear from our from our newsletter or social media, found out otherwise? Do you mind me asking how many found out about this?
We met with J.P. McDonald.
Okay, cool.
I was chatting with him. And
awesome. Okay, there was somebody else there in the back room?
I told them.
Oh, yeah. Got it, cool. Thank you for sharing. So, as you can see, just based on that, we don't really do any advertising. The whole social media thing is really about putting content out there that we think people would find it entertaining, informative, and we don't ask for anything in return, and we don't advertise. All our business is really based on referrals. So that kind of leads to who we are and what we do, right? So, oh, by the way, the very last topic that we're going to cover is once you go through this process, whether you're actually renovating or whether you're building, what are some of the sales strategies that you want to implement and things that you want to look out for to make sure that you are successful in selling for that top dollar quickly? Okay, so I'm very fortunate. We do have a small team, but it's a really good group of people. So some of you may have already know or already met some of the folks on here. So number one is you got my son, Austin Furtado. So if you don't know him, you'll probably get to know him. You're going to freak out a little bit because he's like version 2.0 of me. He sounds like me. People say he kind of looks like me. Even walks like me. It's scary. So, and then we have Mary and Andrew, who are also sales representatives with our team, and again, very crucial in actually helping our clients meet their objectives around real estate when it comes to either whether it's their primary home or whether it's an investment property. And then we also have Deanna Santos, who's not here today. She's our office coordinator, okay? But what you don't see here is behind this is all the other people that are actually members of our team. It's builders that we work with. So a lot of times, we'll be looking at a property we're buying for the purpose of investment, and it's got mold. So we have people that we work with on the mold remediation, whether it's going to be a mortgage broker that helps our clients get mortgages, whether it's going to be a builder or a contractor. It could even be the smallest thing to somebody in pest control for one of their rentals. So it's all those other people that we bring to the table, that Rolodex, that's part of that team, okay? So what is it that Furtado, what do we do? What's the Furtado group do? So if you guys follow us on social media a little bit, you might have seen some of these properties. So if I say, what's the common theme here? What is it? Modern. Right. So yes, we do a lot of stuff related to modern, but that's not what this is about. Each one of these houses, the reason why they're up here is in their own prospective communities, all of them set a precedent and price point. And it wasn't because we spent more in construction. It wasn't because our houses were bigger or better. It was the unique things that we did to these homes that allowed us to sell it at the price that we did. Like you look at the first house. How many people saw that house before ever, like Belvedere? Okay? So that house actually went viral on the internet. That was actually my very first build. I've never built before. And when I was building that house, I'll tell you a quick story. There's a ton of stories I can tell you in that house. I'll tell you that. Okay. So originally bought the land for $850,000. Okay. My wife gave me a budget of $600, and I'll tell you why I spent the $850. But I bought land for $850. I thought the construction was going to cost me $1.1 million. I ended up spending $2.2 million. I spent more than double what my initial budget was. So for anybody who's doing a reno, right, or to build, how many people spent double their budget? Yeah, it happens, all right? But there was something that we did, and that's what we're going to talk about later. Why did I spend the extra $1.1 million? But here's the kicker. That house I bought for $850,000, I have no problem sharing numbers with you, because this wasn't my primary. I did live there for a couple of years, okay? Actually, how many people are here from Revenue Canada? Good. All right. So I'm going to tell you another quick story. I normally don't tell people from Revenue Canada. I've been married 23 years, and I've moved 29 times. Wow. So I've been doing this for a while, all right? Okay? So that one house, bought it for $850,000. I ended up turning around spending $2.2 million in construction. I'm just over $3.2 million. I sold it for $4.5 million. So we made on that one house close to basically a little over, it was pretty much with carrying costs and everything, real estate, everything all done, made close to about $1.3 million on one home. Okay? So, and the crazy thing was that my neighbor had a brand new build, almost the same size as mine, okay, sold at the same time I did for $2.2 million. So the question is how did I sell it for $4.5? Okay, how many people recognize this house? From where?
Social media, no?
Yeah, but do you know where it was actually featured?
Leading to Brian?
Yeah. So Brian Inc. So this was actually on his TV show. He did a whole season on this particular house, all right? So you're wondering, well, why is it there? I didn't build it, all right? And by the way, I want to go back. What is it that Furtado Group does, right? Is that a lot of people ask us, hey, can you build me a house? Or can you design a house, right? And that's not what we do. That's part of what we bring to the table is to create that vision. But more importantly, what we do is start from the very beginning and sourcing out what's the right property to buy, right? That is actually worth investing in, what we need to do, right? And then how do we sell it, and how do we sell it to hit that kind of precedent? So on our end, our business, and how we basically monetize that, is that we hope that we build a relationship with our clients so much so that they see the value, that they work with us from the beginning, and then they buy a property, and then eventually help them through to the end, and when they go to sell, they sell with us. But a lot of times, we get engaged more towards the end. That's okay. We'll still work with you and kind of tweak things, because you're going to see, I'm going to give you examples of where we're doing that right now, and then we still help them sell it at the end, right? So, and there'll be other times where people are doing it for their primary, right? And when they're looking at their primary home, they want to do an improvement. We have no problem helping there as well. Go ahead.
Just because, I guess, like I'm a contractor, so, you know, if I were to do this, I would act as my own project manager. For you guys, because that wasn't your, you know, your bread and butter, what route did you go, or I guess what nerves were coming into play when you did, especially your first home, as you're talking about putting budgets together, project management, you know, on-site management, dealing with the trades, all of that stuff.
Yeah, so really...
Or even design, starting before that, design, architecture, all that stuff. Yeah,
so really, really good question, and we're going to cover a bit of that throughout.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do at the same time is, depending on timing, I'll either answer it somewhere in the middle, or we might even towards the end, I'll sit down and I'll tell you the entire experience.
Yeah.
You'll know that one thing I do is I talk too much. Seriously. So, and I'm a storyteller. And by the way, the stories are great because each story will have a lesson. All right? So I'm going to try to get through stories quickly, but at the end of the day, there'll be a lot of valuable lessons. But back to the point that I was making is within this house, is that when we listed it, I was criticized by most of, how many people here are real estate agents? But I was criticized by a lot of local real estate agents. Like, how dare you? Like, who the hell do you think you are? Seriously. It was like, They came through the house and they were literally so upset that they wanted to criticize every little thing. Like, hey, you know what? Where's that cabinet from? Is that from IKEA? It wasn't. Right? They would go to the garage. Is your garage heated? I'm like, no. And they're like, but you're asking like, $5 million for this house? I'm like, if you bring me a buyer, I'll heat the garage. He's like, it was stupid. But I could see their point of view because they were so angry because if this house sold at the price that it did, it would disrupt the community in terms of sales, and it makes it a lot more difficult for them who already had listings that were listed at 2.5 million. Now when I sold at 4.5, what were their clients saying to them? Right? So a lot of times from a realtor, and again, I'm a realtor, I'm licensed, but they don't want to disrupt that flow too much because it does create conflicts later on. But I don't care. Right? I don't. The idea is to turn around and constantly nail and create these precedents because that is what one excites us, right? And serves our customers best. So either way, like I said, I won't get into all the stories about the Furtado, but either way, that's one. So now with this house, I do want to say something really quickly. So this project we call Marguerite. It was on the Brian A. TV show, and if you remember on the Brian A. TV show, he abandoned the project. Okay. He basically said, his wife was doing all the interior decorating and stuff like that. Again, that is not necessarily true. And this is not a jab at him. This is just that there was an architect involved, there was another builder involved, they were partnered, and they were working on this project. And ultimately what ended up happening, which was true, they're like, we're spending too much money here. And if you guys know, on that TV show, Brian's brother is a realtor, right? And what he said is like, hey, based on this area, you're spending too much money, you're not going to be able to sell this property for what you need, and you're going to lose money. So what did Brian do? He sold it off to an investor. What was interesting is the people who were building this house, the one builder that was partnered with Brian lived here, the investor lived there. It's pretty cool, right? So they knew what I did about this and all this other stuff, and they called us. I went in there, and then all of a sudden they're like, we're spending too much money, where can we cut back? And I said, no, it's the other way around. It's what can we do to continue to differentiate the home? So when you'll see in Burlington, you would think a house like this, there's going to be like a dime a dozen, and they're going to be sales of over 3 million. There isn't. That's what scared him. But we knew what we were doing is based on all our principles, and we said, no, we're going to move forward, gave him a bunch of ideas, consulted on the project, and this ended up selling for 3.3 million. Okay? When nothing was selling over 3 million. And even houses that were on the lake, that were far bigger, still were not selling at 3 million.
Where in Burlington?
This is over just between Appleby and Walker's, and just south of Lakeshore. Really nice street, really nice street. And then I have like a little lane off the back where you can walk down to the lake, right? So either way, by the way, I brought the buyer, right? So my client didn't even have to pay the 5% in commission by bringing that buyer at the time. So he did extremely well. So now Brian leaves. These two guys that live on either side are doing the happy dance, right? Because we got it sold. And then what ended up happening, if you remember on that TV show, there was another property that we're building, which was High Point or High View, I think was the other one. So that one because we have a lot of buyers that are looking for modern homes, I had a buyer for that property. And I was watching it. That property was originally listed at 2 million, which I thought was really low. So when we sold this at 3.3, the irony is, the other project that was listed at 2 million, they ended up canceling the listing and relisting it at 2.2. Actually increased the value because they saw the success that we had here. All right. So anyway, and then again, there's a bunch of other ones here, but I won't go through all of them, right? Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, for sure.
The house on the bottom left, what street was that on?
That one there?
Yeah.
So that was in Southeast Oakville. That's on Cedar Grove. All right.
Okay.
So that was another one where, again, you're going to see that grief that I get, right? There are people like, you're crazy, you'll never get that. This house here, during construction, the challenge here was on backing out to conservation. So my client, as he was doing this, conservation was taking longer to get all the approvals and everything like that. And then he's like, Ruben, you know what, this is taking a little bit longer. And I'm like, you're right, right? This is an experience. This is the first time we're doing something on conservation. So I said, if you want help, just tell me what you got in. I will give you that money, and I will also give you another $100,000. And this is a true story. You know what my client said to me? He goes, no, because then you're going to go make it. But he was complaining, and rightfully so. I would be frustrated with how long it took. But I'm going to tell you the numbers on that one. He ended up buying the land for, it was around $850,000, okay? Because nobody wanted to buy this land because it was a weird, awkward, pie-shaped lot. And then he ended up building this house because he's in the trades. This is a masonry guy, okay? He wears the tool belt. He's got all the contacts. So he was able to build this house pretty cost effectively. He said he spent $8. I don't think trades do a really good job with spreadsheets. I think he spent more. Right? I'm going to say he spent 9. But if he bought it for $850 and spent 9 with carrying costs and everything like that, he'd be in somewhere around what, $1,750,000 at most. We sold that for $2.8 million. He made $1 million on one house.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And he wanted to sell it, and he didn't want to sell it to me. I offered, and it wasn't because I was trying to scam him to make the money. I was just like, look, I thought that was fair. You want out, I'll let you out. I'll buy it. That's how much I believe in the project. But that was Cedar Grove. Okay. Now, like I said, each one of these, crazy story like that. All right? Okay. So one of the things that when you're looking, working on design, you have time, 15 minutes in, so you didn't talk too much. We only did 2 slides. I think there's 150 slides. But either way, so it's understanding your environment. So when you're actually buying something, right, you want to understand what you're dealing with. So I'll give you an example. If I'm buying a house and it's really close to a school, or it's close to a church, or close to a busy street, while I'm designing in the backyard, a couple things I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that if there's a covered porch or anything like that, I have built-in speakers. All right? I'm going to make sure that I have maybe a reflecting tool to drown out any of the sound. All right? So it's those kinds of things. If on the sides of my house I have a neighboring house that doesn't look very attractive, I guarantee you any window that I have there, it's going to be a frosted glass. I don't want to see the side of that house. So it's understanding your environment, what drawbacks you have. Right? And drawbacks means what does the house lack? And how do I basically, because before you start doing improvements, you need to fix what are going to be the objections. Okay? So that's going to be critical. Then the other thing is, I've pretty much covered it. Views, space, and lot heights. The other, if you're doing a rental, right, and it's an older house, what are your limitations? Well, your limitations are going to be your ceiling heights. So how do I create the illusion of higher ceilings? Right? Maybe the space is too small. Well, how do I create the feeling of a larger space without actually creating additional square footage? Right? So this house here, you guys would have seen it, but you won't recognize it. This is the house that we have listed on South Drive. There's so many listings that we have that start with the word South with the letter S. It gets confusing. But this one here is in South Drive. Anybody familiar with Roseline, the Roseline area in Burlington? Okay, very trendy area. It's near downtown Burlington. The average house there is around $2 million, and that's like an older, bigger home renovated. Or then you would see a brand new build, might even get close to $3 million, okay? So we bought this house at the peak of the market when things were going crazy, right? This would not be the typical house that we would want to buy to do a rental. Why? What's the one thing that this house is? So if the houses in this area, as a fixer-upper, are close to $1 million, and you know we're going to spend some coin to actually fix it up, what would be the objection of a buyer looking at the outside of the house?
Single car garage.
Single car garage, and what was the other one?
It's not the same level. Right?
Yeah, it's a multi-level.
Yeah.
So yes and no. So the fact that it's actually a side split, sometimes you can actually create a really interesting design with a side split. But for somebody who's been in a boring side split, that would be an objection. The other reason why I don't like side splits is generally side splits are going to be 3 levels, right? This one here was actually 4. Some people I know have 5. Right, so it gets pretty crazy. But either way, this was a 3-level side split. But the biggest thing was the garage, right? So what would people normally do in a renovation? If I walk, I'm going to ask the question, I want you to think about it. They're going to renovate this house. What would they normally do on the front? Right, they're going to update the windows, right? They'll put probably a vinyl window. And normally they'll probably either keep it the same color or they'll go white. I could drive down a street and there'll be all these houses that are renovated, and I won't recognize which ones are renovated because they still look the same, right? The idea is that you want to draw attention to it. Almost every house that we work with, I can guarantee you, a car will park, they will get out and they'll take their phone and they'll start taking pictures for ideas because it stands out. And the idea is you don't want it to stand out in a bad way, right? But you want people to know that that house has been updated. So what do we do with it? You guys ready? Right. That's it now. Yeah, right? That's the house, okay? So there's formulas that we use and how much you should spend on a rental. But one thing that always scared me about this house was the size and the ceiling heights and the garage. So because we got it at such a good deal, right? I said, okay, listen, we could still make some pretty good money here. And by the way, if you come to the flipping class, that's where we get into the actual numbers, but I'll still share them, right? But you'll see formulas and everything like that, down to the penny, what it cost, what it made, how long it took, everything like that. But what you'll see, the most important, is we wanted to, the biggest objection was the garage, right? Without spending a lot of money, all we did is carry the cladding, extended the garage, right? But that's not actually a double car garage, right? You could tell. But what it did, it just removed the objection. It wasn't the first thing that people saw was a smaller garage, right? And then the other thing was obviously changing the windows to black and making them, by the way, when you're doing windows, right? Again, most of these guys are contractors, or a lot of people are contractors in here, so you'll know this. But when you're doing a window, if you want to extend the window, make it wider, very difficult because there's a header. But one easy thing to do in a reno is make your windows longer, almost right down to the floor. Because that's literally just cutting out a bit of brick and just buying, obviously, it's changing the size of the one that was there. Okay? But a couple of things, like I think he spent a little too much money on this at reno, right? There's things you could have cut back on. I'll give you an example, the brick, right? So the brick, that was a brick before, right? So that was a brick now. So he came up to me and goes, Ruben, I have an option either to paint or to stain the brick. What should I do? Good question, right? It's the wrong question. Brick at $6,000 or to stain the brick at $9,000. It's going to cost me an incremental $3,000. What should I do? That's the right question. Because his first question was, yes, anybody would say stain the brick. It's going to look a lot nicer. Because you see how some of the bricks are a little darker?
Yeah.
Right? That looks like the original brick, right? But if you paint it, the grout lines, the mortar and all that all gets painted up. But I'm going to tell you something, and I speak from experience. If that extra $3,000 he spent is not going to help him sell the house any faster or for any more money. Because the house still had limitations and it still had a lot of other things going for it that were way more important. But what happened here, right? And again, this is still a successful project by all means. But what happened here is, this is another term that we point is I said, don't let profit or pride, okay, get in the way of profit, right? A lot of times people get too proud of their projects and want to do all these different things, and that's why they do it, because it's a pride thing. And the staining the brick here was a pride thing. Oh, but I like it better, right? Fine, do it, right? Especially if you're going to live there and you're going to enjoy it for the next couple of years, definitely do it, okay? But that's really important. Okay, guys, I'm going to speed this up a little bit, okay? So the other challenge with this house was ceiling heights. So how do we create the illusion of higher ceilings? Really simple. You see, every time you see a doorway, if you have a low ceiling, automatically your eyes get drawn to the space above, right? So the idea is get rid of all your doors. Really. On the main floor, get rid of all your doors. Even the closets, we took the millwork floor to ceiling. You look at the front entrance, we took the door floor to ceiling. You walk in this house, it feels like it's 10-foot ceilings, right? So the other thing that we did is, here we spent quite a bit of money on the front door in comparison. Generally, somebody will spend $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 on the door. This door, we got a deal on. We did pay $4,000 for it, but technically retail on this door was closer to $8,000, but tax almost $10,000, right? True story, right? Also, the vendor could have been inflating the price of it, but that's what he told us. Okay, but either way, but guess what? Every time there's a showing at this house, every time there's a showing, so, by the way, somebody is there. Our houses don't show themselves, not these kinds of houses. Because they don't sell themselves, they sell the value. You still need people to bring their eye and attention to those things. First thing, every time anybody comes in, we're like, yeah, you know what? The fit and finish of this house is far beyond, even the houses that are listed $2.5 million. That door is $10,000. Show me another house in here that is basically listed under $3 million that has a $10,000 door. Very rare. But that always sets the tone for everything else in the house. Just by talking about the front door, and it's the first thing they walk through, so they can recognize and appreciate it. Okay? So next thing, fireplace. Okay, so go ahead.
Sorry, question on the last one. When you're talking about removing doors, will you run into issues like the interior doors there where the closets and such are?
Yeah.
When you run into issues where
Structural?
you've got, voids
no,
and stuff?
No, because first of all, you'll still see, in this situation here, we carry the millwork. So there's still a beam in there. So the idea is create the illusion where you can't get rid of it. And a lot of times when there's a door, it doesn't mean it's structural, right? A lot of them. Like in here, you'll see another image. I'm going to show you which walls were structural, which weren't. So I'll bring that up as a point. But most of the times, you can get rid of that header, all right? It's not a structural thing. Okay. So here, fireplace. On one house, my own primary house, I ended up spending, like on one house that I ended up doing, because I thought I was going to be there forever, but I told you about 29 times, so that didn't happen, right? But I thought I was going to be there for a long time, so I spent $25,000 on a fireplace, doing this fireplace detail. It was sick. It was sick. I loved it, right? And my wife's like, there's a scratch on the floor, it's getting wear and tear, we should move. By the way, married to the same woman for those 29 moves. That's pretty impressive. Never mind the moves themselves, right? But either way, so fireplace, you don't have to spend that kind of money, right? Here, all we did is take a wood-burning fireplace, right? Instead of spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a fireplace, we kept it wood-burning. All we did was framed over the original brick. So that was brick, and I apologize to the lighting, but that was actually brick that was already originally painted white, which is not a bad thing to do, but everybody does that. right? So we actually framed it, cladded it with plywood, and then we created an area to actually store the wood, put all our birch wood in there, which was really cheap to do, and then added some black metal, recessed the TV, added another black metal trim around the fireplace, and now that fireplace in this picture actually got onto Dwell magazine. How many people know what Dwell magazine is? Okay, this was editor's choice.
Wow.
Right? That. And I spent $25,000 on mine. And that collectively, everything that's all there is probably maybe $3,500, right? So you don't have to spend that kind of money.
Is that tile or marble?
It's a tile. It's a very thin porcelain tile that comes in sheets almost the size of that whiteboard.
Yeah.
Okay?
Looks like marble though.
It does.
Yeah.
And by the way, you'll see a lot of projects who use this because this is huge. And by the way, the other thing that I like is when we do modern, and again, we don't just do modern, right? But when we do modern, I call it a classic modern. It's timeless. You'll look at the colors that we use. Too often, you'll see people go crazy with modern, and it gets really tacky, very trendy. Things like with culture stone and all these things that are trends that come in and go. We avoid that. We try to go with stuff that's timeless. Marble's been around forever. Concrete's been around forever. Stone's been around forever, right? Walnuts and woods like that are around forever. But when you start seeing like these blue lacquers and orange, and then the glass block and all that stuff, you can go to a house and you're like, wow, right? Look like somebody, a drug dealer or pimp. Right? Okay, so. This is the same house. Now when you look at the walls here, how many people have walked into a house that looks like this? Yeah, all the time. You're on the lower sides. But what would most people do as a renovate? I'll tell you what they would do. They're going to turn around and they're going to basically change the floors, paint the house, put a new kitchen in, update the washroom, and say they did a rental. That's most rentals. That is true. That is most rentals. I see them. I go into them. Right? Anybody can do that. So how are you going to set a precedent on sale if you're doing something anybody else can do? Then you have the more experienced, maybe a general contractor, and it's not a shot at a general contractor, but it's going to be somebody more experienced that does it, and they're like, no, we're going to open up this wall, they're going to open up this wall, but they still leave a column because of cost. They're worried because they're thinking, no, you know what, I got to keep my costs down. So they'll keep a column here structurally. Looks a lot better, it's a lot more open, right? But here's what I don't understand. If you're opening up all of this, what would be the incremental cost of actually getting rid of that column, right? If you're already going through that amount of work, now I'm going to tell you, the incremental cost of getting rid of that column for somebody who's doing it, I can tell it's 5 to at the very most, which I'm going to tell you, especially if it's a general contractor, but it's $5,000, even probably less, but at the very most 10. So for $5,000 more, this is a house that we bought for $875 that's currently listed at $1,650,000, okay? Why would you not spend an extra $5,000 to do this? Right? I don't get it. I don't get it. People are too often focused on their cost, not the opportunity. So again, the way I evaluate everything, if I'm going to do this, am I going to sell it faster or for more money? And if the answer is yes, I'll seriously consider it. That's why I went from spending $1.1 million to $2.2 million.
So when you say the incremental cost, does that mean opening up the ceiling and doing like a steel beam versus to carry the load?
Yeah.
Versus...
So yeah, I'm talking. So if somebody's already opening it all up, and trades are there, and everybody's there, and you're already moving some stuff out of the way. Believe me, you're already going permits, engineering, all that other stuff. What is it? What's going to be the additional cost if the trades are there to do that? I can guarantee you, it's not more than 10. Even if you're paying it and you're not in business and you're paying somebody to do it, house like this, because we didn't have a second floor over us, number one. So this is, right? So it wasn't a huge undertaking to do that. And the other thing, sometimes what I'll see is somebody actually will leave and there'll be a bit of a bulkhead. Get rid of the bulkheads, right? Oh, but then ductwork. We'll figure out a solution for ductwork. That's our biggest, one of the biggest things we're always dealing with is ductwork, right? So you should see the stuff we come up with ductwork. I actually have a picture of what we did for ductwork, okay? By the way, also look at the stairs, open riser stairs, right? So that we have these views that go beyond that room. The other thing, you see the glass here? We took that wall back and actually added glass. So again, creating these larger views, right? So also, detail was because it's a smaller kitchen, right? It's not a small kitchen, it's smaller than the $3 million home. What we did is we integrated the appliances. So the appliances are paneled. So yeah, you'll see the oven. We added a espresso maker. Again, it's about the experience. How many houses that are listed at $1,650,000 have an espresso maker already in it? That was like, he ended up, I think, paying $1,500 for the espresso maker, right? So those are key differentiators. So in a washroom, when you have small spaces, we had pocket doors. Doors tend to get in the way, make things even feel more kludgy and small. We do that. Where there's a vanity, imagine if this vanity was mounted and went right to the floor, right? That's a tiny washroom. right? By the way, this is not a great picture of it. It's a great washroom, but it's tiny. If that vanity went to the floor, it would feel like the room's even smaller. So we always have wall-mounted vanities so that they're top and carry through. This picture here, all I'm showing is a couple of things to dress it up a little bit. It depends on the project, right? But when you're talking 1.6 million, 2 million, well, on the master, we tend to add like a trough drain, try to make it a little bit more sexy. The other thing is we want to make sure that our shower walls are frameless. Why? So that there's all the lines are not interrupted, right? And then we also want to carry the tile. This is where I could always tell a house, if my Uncle Joe built it, right? You could walk in, it's boring, it's well constructed, it's done cost effectively. Then I can go into a house that I can see an interior designer did it. Because if the interior designer did, there'll be some mosaic tiles coming across this way, and going across this way, right? And then there's the other house that's just simple and literally timeless, and it's going to be this, right? So, but the other thing we do, you notice, we'll add the thermostatic valve right where the entrance is. And then we'll add the rain head towards the side with the shower bar. So then we explain to people, that's when you come in so you can turn it on, you're not getting hit with the cold water, unless you want a cold shower, right? So all those different things are important. So this was actually a picture of shot in elevator. By the way, that's my dog, Nelly Furtado. Related? I'm like, yeah, she's beautiful. Great dog, right? So here, this is actually on the second floor. Remember I told you ductwork is always one of the biggest challenges? So on the second floor, this house, because of the size of it, we had 3 air conditioners, 3 furnaces, right? On the one side of the house, the idea is how we're going to get heating and cooling to where these 3 bedrooms are. So everybody was like, oh, we'll put an AC unit on the roof. Problem with that is when it kicks in and you're in the bedroom, you're going to hear this thing kick in and hear it come off, right? So I came up with this idea, and it's funny, my very first build, but I'm always looking for solutions, right? And I said, you know what, I got an idea. On the second floor, on this side of the house, right, we're going to add a step. And we're going to add all our ductwork into the floor, right? And we added another subfloor above that. So it was just a natural step right where the hallway was. It was actually, it even looked like an architectural feature where that step was. But the cool thing is when I added this step, I'm like, I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm spending $10,000 to do this entire subfloor and this ductwork. I want to make a feature out of it. So we countersunk the bed into the floor. So the mattress is actually sitting flush on the floor. Do you believe the guy who bought the house, one of the features why he bought this house is because he was dying for his kid to actually get this room? Yeah. Yeah, so these little things, right? So I had this bed custom made, framed out, and mattress sitting to the ground like that. I'll tell you, for an old guy, getting out of that bed, not fun. But for a young guy, sure, okay? So, stairs. Stairs to me is not just about getting up and getting down. Stairs to me is an opportunity to actually turn around and create wow factor, right? Yeah?
Sorry, I have a quick question. Just what did you use for did you use open web I-beams, or how did you actually do it? Just coming from
So even on this, we
side.
didn't even use open web I-beams.
Okay.
We literally started, because we did the ductwork first,
Right.
and then we
you
started
came up
framing
with
around
gotcha.
it.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So back then, that was done in 2012, so the construction was around.
Yeah,
2012.
it's
It existed back then,
since
but
yeah,
that was old school.
It was primitive.
Yeah. Right?
Cool.
Okay, so, a good question. So, the stairs, like if you look at these staircases, instead of just having a stair land like a normal stair, we actually added a platform at the bottom. You can't see it here, but there's actually a rock garden, and then we have some with rocks on it with a birch wood on there. When there was a showing here, it was a production. Believe me, I was hiring the landscapers to come in, cut the grass on a 45, so I had the lines, all the music was on, the windows I spent $300, like every time there was a showing, I spent almost $400 just getting the house ready, okay? But the house, like every single TV would be playing the video of the house, right? So we have a virtual tour video that would have music, and then thered be little candles all lit through there. Like I'm telling you, it was an experience, and that's what you're going for, is that emotion, okay? So, how do you differentiate your house? Right? You're kind of starting to see where we're going with this, but we're gonna get into very specifics, right? So you must know the standard features of the houses in the area that you're competing with. If the average house has no garage, by adding a garage, you differentiate. If the average house has a double-car garage, right? Then by going to a 3-car garage, you're gonna differentiate. So Belvedere, when I started that process, first thing I asked myself, I'm like, okay, based on what I'm buying, based on what I think I'm gonna spend, I have to sell this house for over $3 million. Again, this applies to houses even at $500,000, but I just want you to think that. So I said, I have to sell for over $3 million. So houses under $3 million, how many do you think have a double-car garage? Almost all of them. So I said, well, wait a minute, what if I do a 3-car garage? How many houses right now, right, over $3 million, have a 3-car garage? Now we're in the Oakville area. And you would be surprised. There was literally, there was like originally 25 listings, but of the 25, some were like farms and barns, like brand new construction, luxury homes, there was only 12. I'm like, wow, that kind of surprised me. I said, well, how many have a 4-car garage? And there was only 2. Actually, that's not true. There was another one, so I'm gonna say 3. Okay, so there's 3 houses. But the 3 houses that had a 4-car garage were listed at 6 million, 10 million, like, and I think one of them is even at, like, I can't remember, but all I'm gonna tell you is this, is I had no competition in a 4-car garage. So guess what I did? I did a 4-car garage. Guess why the guy bought the house? Yeah, you know what the first thing he did when he bought the house was? Watch what he did. He ended up doing a chrome baseboard around the garage, right? All done in stainless steel and chrome. He ended up painting one wall yellow. I was like, why yellow? To match the calipers on his Lamborghini. The garage was a big deal. I knew my buyer, right? Remember I told you I didn't have a heated garage? Well, I ran a gas line to it. He took advantage of the gas line because he heated it instantly, right? So know your buyer, right? So, and then also you stand out through design. So whether you're going to go traditional, Victorian, it doesn't matter. Know your area, but you want to stand out through design. Obviously, we focus on modern because we've done really well, but we also do a lot of stuff around traditional homes as well. So, and then add features that focus on lifestyle. Okay. So here, originally, and again, I don't always talk about Belvedere. I can pick any project, but I'll always reference that because I've already mentioned it, and it's easy for you guys to refer back to it. Right when I started that project, the very first thing I said I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bowling alley in the basement. Right? Why would I say that? Because for somebody to picture a bowling alley, it's got to be 80 feet long. How many people have a room that's over 80 feet long? Your house isn't even 80 feet long for most of the park, right? So guess what happened? When I said I was adding a bowling alley, so we already framed it, poured the concrete, we already had the ball return thing ready to go. And I remember being at Sobeys, at the cash register, and hearing these 2 people talk about, oh, did you see that house that they're building over there in Recreation Park? I heard they're going to have a bowling alley in it. Like just random people, because it was unique. Yeah.
Sorry, just a quick question, just again, just going back to the management of all that. Are you the one reaching out to, let's say, a bowling alley installation specialist? You're the one doing all that. You're learning about it.
In China, I was doing
right. And if there's a car lift in the garage, you're the one actually researching that and doing all that on top of teaching people and everything else. Yeah. So, your wife must be happy.
Yeah, the late nights. So
yeah, sorry, just
no problem. But again, but people don't understand what happens behind the scenes to get all this happen.
Yeah, no, it's just so much to go into it. I think that's the biggest problem. Everybody's so overwhelmed.
You know, like in that house, even from the access to the house, like when you got into the house, you didn't know where the door was.
Right.
Right. We had like a commercial type system where it was all done through RFID technology. So let's say the wife of the home had her keys in her purse, she would literally go by the door, and then the door would open up for her, right? Wow. And we knew what time people were coming in, we knew what time, like all that stuff. Who figured it out? I had to figure it out. And we, even going into the theater, we had 2 movie posters that would actually be the posters of the actual movie, and they were actually digital posters. How did I set up all the software to take these TVs and do all this? Because if I had to pay a company to do it, it'd be really expensive. So I'm trying to tweak it and do like, you know, the quick put together, do it yourself type thing, right?
So when you, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but when you first started, how many houses were you doing? Are you doing 1 and then you started with 3 and then you went 5?
Again, I'm going to get into all of that, like I just said, but I'll tell you, I'll share all that with you. Okay, so so again, things that, it's also, again, going back to focusing on lifestyle. So all too often I see and because I'm spending so much time on these other slides, I promise you, the other slides will go so much faster because I've already covered the content. So we'll get through it. Let me just see time. 30, or about 35 minutes in. So one of the, like even now, okay? By the way, I don't always build because sometimes there's an opportunity where I see somebody who messed up, right? When they actually did their build, and I'll take advantage of it. So the house I currently live in right now was a house that was a brand new construction, brand new custom home. And I'm like, man, this is a great house. I can't build it for the same price that they're offering because they're struggling to sell it, right? So this house should have probably been $2 million, but I ended up picking it up for $1,650,000, okay? But the problem with this house was that literally, one, the marketing strategy was pretty flawed. And then the other thing is that one of the biggest assets was the basement, and they didn't do anything to this basement, right? This basement was just one big open space, but it had 9-foot ceilings. So what I went and is basically downstairs in the basement. Now when you go downstairs, think of like a cube. Right? There's one section of the house was like a cube. It's all done in millwork, so it's all done like in wood. And then there's a big glass entrance and a big glass door that leads into an area that's going to be a gym with like flush-mounted TVs, mirrors, and like high-end gym equipment. and just outside there's a refreshment area with a bar that has all the same millwork. And then to the right of it is now you have this, I think it's like an 11-foot massive pocket door that goes into a pocket done in the same millwork. And when you open that, you're now into a recreational center where there's like pool tables, multiple TVs. It actually feels like you're at, I don't know, Shoeless Joe's, probably the best way to describe it, right? And then you're gonna have a media center where you have like 150-inch screen. The problem is that that's focusing on lifestyle, right? So when we literally are working with a client on a house, we'll take what we say is a gym, or what would be a bedroom, and convert it to a gym. What is a washroom? We have a steam shower, maybe, and all of a sudden it's a wellness center, right? It's those kinds of things. Okay? The other thing too is like, how many times do you see, like, you hear about houses having elevators in them, right? Right? Nice feature. It's $35,000. Know your buyer. How often do you think they use the elevator? They don't. When do you think they use the elevator?
When you get older.
The groceries? Well, what if the kitchen's on the main floor?
Oh, no, this person was on the side.
Like, that would make sense. But their kitchen's on the main floor. You know when they use the elevator?
5-year-olds.
No.
When they're old.
To
No.
move in and move out.
No.
To storage.
No.
Yeah.
So what is it?
Just show it off to you guys.
It is. It's a feature that they can say they have. That's part of it. But do you know when they actually use it? Well, if somebody says they have an elevator for a requirement, it's this. Know your buyer. I'm selling a house at $4.5 million. Guess what that buyer does? He travels. So when he travels, guess what he doesn't want to do down the stairs? Luggage. They use it to put their luggage and bring their luggage down and bring their luggage up. That's the elevator. Yeah? So like I said, if you know your buyer, same thing. What else are they going to have? Right? The female in the house is going to have a lot of clothes. You want to have a nice big closet. All too often I see a $3 million house and I see like this little pee-pee closet with a really crappy millwork in it. I don't get it, right? Because they don't know their buyer. All they're thinking is about building a house. Okay? So guys, the next thing we're going to do is going to go into a floor plan. And I'm going to draw something super quick up on the board here because I want to show you something. This actually just happened last week, okay? So I'm going to be super quick. There's an office in this area here with a doorway. And then there's a kitchen. This is the cabinets across the back, window there, and somewhere in here is, okay, and then there's a window right here, a window over here, and a window over here, okay? So, kind of know, and by the way, the garage is in this area here, okay? So you have an entrance, office, kitchen, but it's, so this house is around 3,200 square feet, okay? So I'm going to tell you some of the common mistakes that I see, and then what we did to address this. So number one is, person calls me up. He says, hey, Ruben, I saw you, like, way back when one of your listings that you had in Hickson. We're really impressed with what you did there and what you have accomplished in terms of some of the sales. Can you come by? Right? I want your help. I'm like, okay, where are you along in your construction? He goes, we're almost finished. I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, but don't worry, Mike. And I said, so what kind of experience? And I'm talking on the phone. He goes, no, my brother, he basically does commercial properties. He does development. So like, they're the bomb, right? And then he's in marketing, so he's done his research, they're the bomb. So then he's like, go to our website. So I go to their website, and I start seeing pictures of this house. And I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. I'm excited. When can I come see you, right? So we book a meeting. I go there, and I go to that front of the house, and it looks amazing. They're doing a really, really nice job. I come in, I see the office, right? And you know what? In the interest of time, I won't tell you everything. I'm going to tell you the key most important things. So that's an office. And then right here's the kitchen, so you guys can kind of visualize this kitchen. So let me do this for you so you can see it. Okay. That's the kitchen. I saw that photo, I'm like, wow, that's pretty nice. So you can see the kitchen where the window was. That window there, right, I talked about, and you can see how you did the island and the breakfast bar. Saw it, I'm like, this is super nice. You're doing something that other people aren't doing. You're going to do well here. But the problem was this house was 3,200 square feet. Guess what he didn't have? A formal dining room. He's like, yeah, but you don't need it. Look, you have this area that you sit here. I said, yeah, but what happens at Christmas and Thanksgiving when their family or friends come over? He's like, yeah, but this is somebody who's buying modern. They're only 2 days of the week, or 2 days out of the year, right? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. People buy houses based on those 2 days. And he's like, I kind of was thinking that. I was a little worried. I'm like, listen, there's things that are, you know what, that I would say that you can leave, but this is one I would say you definitely have to change. So then he says, Ruben, what if I take this table, because we have a big space here, that's an 8-foot table. Because he's an engineer, I can actually make it that engages and disengages, and there's a beautiful leg that locks out, and all of a sudden we can turn that and make like an 8-foot dining room table. said, okay, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm like, that makes sense, right? So if I didn't meet with him, that would be it. And I've already had houses that we listed that had a separate kitchen, a separate dining room, but it wasn't a formal dining room, and that became an objection. Imagine having to turn around on like Thanksgiving Day, everybody sitting around the kitchen island, right? I don't know what he was thinking, right? And these are smart people, right? So this is not me criticizing them. I just see people because they're so close to the project, they don't see it, right? So what he says is, what if I do that? I said, yeah, that's great, but there's a problem. See this window here? That's a nice view of a tree, kind of, or a fence in the back, but that's not what you see, because this is a 3D rendering. What you saw was this decrepit house with a roof that was rotting on the side. I'm like, why would you leave that window like clear? Frosted. Oh, but I'm going to do a fence back here like that. I'm like, your fence can only go so high. I'm always going to see the roof. Just frost it, right? And the house was really tight to the one side. So then I said, but the other problem is now I have this massive TV in my what will be my formal dining room during the day. So I said, the other thing you need to do is we need to dress up that wall. We can't leave it just drywall like that. She's like, well, what should I do? I'm like, do this. I had a piece of millwork in walnut to match everything, right? So it's not this, because this was actually my family room. But I said, take a piece of millwork, flush mount the TV, add a shelf. Then I could even say, hang a light or something, a pendant light, to dress it up and make it more formal. And then your TV could say recessed in it. And then during Thanksgiving and everything like that, have a little fireplace feature like going on the TV. That's pretty cool. That, to me, is now an opportunity to sell the house. So that's how we address that. And what did that take? 5 minutes. Right? So that we could change, because we were early enough to change it. But guess what? We can't. Here's the two big mistakes. Okay? So first of all, his lot's over here, really tight to this side. So on this side here, this is the washroom right here. He had a sink and a toilet right here. And he had a door that opened up here. This was kind of open. This is actually smaller, by the way. And then there's a window here, and he's doing a fireplace here. First thing I always ask, people always design this house, where's the furniture in this house? He's like, well, up to the person. I'm like, no, you need to figure out where the furniture is going to go. Because when we go to sell this house, it really should be staged, right? Otherwise, it looks like it's unfinished, right? So I said, okay. He's like, oh, we could put it all across here. And he's putting the fireplace, this massive fireplace, spending tons of money on this fireplace, and he's tucking it over here, right? And by the way, the house actually does more of this. It's like this. It jets out like that a bit, sorry. So it's more like that. There's a step in here, right? And then there's a step around there that steps down, okay? But either way, he's putting the fireplace in this corner, and he's going to do the same thing what everybody else does, right? Fireplace down here, TV over the top. Hate that, because the TV sits too high, and you're looking up this way, and then the fireplace gets too hot, burns the TV. Not a really great design. But either way, I'm like, why would you stick it there? Because now it's right next to this window. And by the way, here's another window that was clear, and then he had his other neighbor who was almost like a hoarder. Right? So I'm like, why is that window even clear? Frosted, right? And I said, what you should have done is take that fireplace, put it here, create a really nice feature, put your TV on this side. And again, I won't go into that level of detail, right? But that's where it would be, because then you would have these views that would actually look at this beautiful fireplace and TV and everything like that, rather than being tucked here. And then that way you can run your couches this way, right? It would look really cool. Okay, so that was another thing, but too late to fix that. But this was the one that I was blown away by. Actually, no, there was one even worse than this. So here, right, he's got a washroom. So if I'm in my family room, guess what I'm looking at? A washroom, a powder room. You should never have a powder room or a mud room in direct access to a common room. Whether it be like a kitchen, definitely a kitchen, right? A mud room into a kitchen, not a bad idea, but like a washroom, right? But I see it happen. Like a $3 million house the other day I saw, and literally I'm sitting in the breakfast area, you open the door, and there's shit. Right? I was like, come on, right? So, and then, because he's an engineer and he's got all these like big, it's all about big, right? He's got a 36-inch door, right? That opens up into this powder room.
What?
Yeah, 36-inch door, and it was like 8 feet. It's massive, because all his doors were 36, so he kept them all the same, right? So I'm like, okay, why would you do that? He goes, because this is a big space, because this drops down 2 steps, so the ceiling height's here around 11, so he's got this big door. So now you have this big door that kind of swings. And I'm like, if anything, that would have been a pocket door, right? Right? So and then it would be out of the way, right? So it's not in the way. But I could tell, while I'm standing here talking to him, he's always like looking at the powder. He's looking at it. He wants me to look over there. He's all excited for me to look at the powder. You know why he's excited? Because he had the really sick tile on the powder. Yeah, there's really nice tile. You guys have probably seen it. It looks like wood, but it's actually tile, right? So it's looking really nice. But I don't want to look over there because I'm like, man, this is not where I want to go right now. But then when he brought me there, I'm like, why would you, like, I'm like, really? And then he's like, yeah. And I'm like, why the door? And then I'm thinking, maybe handicapped, right? Big door? Yeah, there's 2 steps down to get down here. You're not building this house for somebody who's on a wheelchair, right? Like, all these things are not thought of, right? So I turned around and said, listen, I'm going to show you something. If you, like, first of all, I wouldn't have not let you do this as a design. But now that you've done it, I'll tell you how you fix it. But let me see if you're going to fix it. And he won't. I know he won't because he's too far in. People are like, no. It's like, you know what? It's just, you literally just broke your arm, and now I'm going to break it again, right? To basically fix it even better. You don't want to do it. So this is what he should have done. Okay. Let me do it here so you can see it again and you can see it. If this is a sink and this is a toilet, here's the solution. You take the toilet, you put it on the wall mounted, in this corner right here. Take this door, make this a pocket door that goes in that way. You guys following along with me? Then what you do is now my toilet's all the way in this corner. You can barely see it. Then I'm going to take a counter and go all the way across this way like a floating counter. I'm going to add my sink here. I'm going to add a light that hangs over it. Okay? When I'm looking here now, what am I seeing? I'm seeing like almost like a little wet bar area is what I'm looking at. You want to see what that'll look like compared to what he's doing? Sure. Look at the first picture. But imagine now if you're in your family room and that's what I'm looking at. How dramatic it changes that. Now, you know that's going to be an objection. This might not. Right? But they're not going to change it. Right? Okay? You guys with me? Okay, cool. All right. So here's the formula now in terms of a process. Again, I am taking too long. Now we're about. Okay. So really quickly, this applies to your primary home. Okay? If you're thinking, should I do this renovation? Okay, is it going to be more than 10%, like 10% more, than if I were to buy a house that's already turnkey? Okay? Why is that important? Because if today your house is worth, let's say, $1 million, and your renovation is going to cost $200,000, right? But you can go buy a turnkey home for slightly less. There is a pretty substantial cost with one, right? All you did is you added a double door. You got rid of that single door, which I like doing. I've done that myself because it's a lot easier coming in and out. Okay, guys? So now, away from your primary. Now, if you're doing a flip, the numbers have to be different, right? So this is the formula that I use for doing a flip. Okay? And again, guys, a full class on this alone. But normally, you got to take the purchase price, right? And then you take your rental cost, you add 25%, and then you make darn well sure that there is a house that is selling for at least that much. If it doesn't, do not even go close to it. Okay? So now, how would that look like in terms of profit? Well, if you bought something for $800,000 and you spent $150 on it, then that means that there should be something selling for about $1.2 million. So your gross profit on that project, based on the acquisition, based on the reno, is going to be less than 5% in commission. More or less, is going to give you an average net profit around $170,000. Okay? So, but at least that much. Okay? Now let's look at a new build. Same thing applies. So let's just say you're doing, again, you're in an area that there's a lot more luxury type homes. You buy something for $1.2 million. You spend $900,000 on a build. Again, now you want to make sure in that area there's houses today that are that sold at least $2,625,000. Because when you go through the same process of what you bought it for, what you spent on it, what you're going to pay to sell it, all of a sudden you're going to be making somewhere now around $375,000. And you want to hear what's crazy? That's what at a minimum you should make. Like we have clients, I told you, like right now we just sold a property, and on one property, based on this, a purchase price of $900,000, like actually it was closer to, it was actually in the high nines, so I'm going to even say $1 million. And then his build cost was around $900,000. On that one house, he made $900,000. But this is at a minimum. If you do this and it makes sense, then it's worth exploring more. But then you use that as a benchmark. You try to find something better. Don't just jump into this one, right? Okay?
What's your average cost per square foot?
On a build or in a rental?
Build.
I'm going to cover that. So I'm going to tell you, depends what we're building, but general custom builder, you'll see something around $200 a square foot. And I'll show you examples, okay?
But what if in the neighborhood you're in, you're not going to get the money for that? So then at what point do you make the decision of, is it worth doing that or is it worth selling?
Perfect. Number one, so automatically, so that's the first formula. If you're doing it on your primary, you have to make sure that, hey, if I'm doing this, right? Again, if you're doing it now on your primary and it's with the intentions of selling it, that 10% doesn't make sense because there's no profit there, right? That's if you're saying, I'm gonna do this rental, I'm gonna stay here, right? Then you need to make sure that even if you spend 10% more than what a turnkey house that already has everything you want, right? Then it still makes sense to do it for the purpose of your primary. But when you start investing, then that number has to be a lot higher, right? And if there's not a house in that area that sustains that price, then don't do it. That's the rule of thumb,
Yeah,
right?
so you're the one that taught me, you know, if you build a $2 million home in a $500,000
You're not,
neighborhood,
you
you're
don't
never gonna
definitely,
get
don't
that.
definitely.
Yeah.
You're only setting higher benchmarks for the areas you're looking
Yeah,
at
yeah.
with
But
your
that's
stuff,
not-
right? So
And that was my question, yeah, but you once told me that sometimes you would put the house higher in order to raise.
I did. So that's part of our flipping
So I was
class.
gonna say, so at what point do
Yeah.
you play that game?
So again, that's something we talk in our flipping class. So when I was actually buying and selling, even some houses that I didn't do anything to, I deliberately listed without knowing that I would not sell, right? Because there wasn't a lot of activity in the market. So if I bought the house from the builder, because I was buying houses directly off the builders, like your typical cookie cutter builder, and I would buy a house for $250,000. As soon as I moved into it, I would then go list it like at $400,000. And my neighbors were like, "What the hell? The builder's selling at $250,000. Like, what are you doing?" But because I listed at $400,000, the neighbor's like, "If you can get $400,000, I'll get $350,000. Boom, house got sold at $350,000. Now there's a new market. It was like a bet, you know, like an auction kind of thing going on. So by raising the bar, I did that a couple of times. That's also our realtors that like me too much. Okay, so again, okay, so one more slide, and we're going to take a quick break. So, and then the other thing too, where's Gino? Gino's still here. Oh, there you go. Okay. So Gino actually did a project with me. So this one's not your stuff, right? So I always say, constantly be reevaluating. It doesn't matter, okay, what your initial thought was. When you did this, it made sense. Let's do that, right? But you've got to constantly evaluate it. As you're going along, does it still make sense to do it? And then you always be asking yourself that one question. Remember I talked about it earlier? If I do this, am I going to sell it for faster for more money? Right? That's the other question. And then the other thing is, if you're rental, okay, this is another really important formula for anybody who's doing rentals. If your rental exceeds more than $75 a square foot, you're probably not going down the right path. Some rentals are going to be different because of the caliber of the rental that it's going to be, the area that it's in may sustain it. But the reason why I say that is that if you're doing a renovation at 175 and it's a typical renovation, somebody could possibly build a house at 200, right? Spend the extra $25 a square foot. This is our kind of secret sauce. Okay, this is what we do that's a little bit different. Remember I said that we look for this 3-exit strategy, right? So when Mary's going through that exercise, one of the things that we want, these are the 3 things that the property absolutely needs to meet. Okay, so if you guys walk away with anything, this is one of the things. We want to make sure that it's in an area that is being redeveloped. Okay, and I don't want to be near an area that's being redeveloped. I don't want to be on a street where there's new houses across the street that people are tearing down and building new, or they're doing crazy rentals and setting new record prices in that area. If I look at a house, even just to renovate, right, and I have no intentions of building on it, I still want it to meet that first criteria. Because the reason why the property that Gino had bought and the other property that I showed you earlier, the reason why it went for the price that it did, they bought it for the land. Right? So if you meet that first criteria, even doing nothing to that house, it will appreciate better than the average house on the market, right? Because of the fact of the demand for the land. Secondly, we want to make sure that the property is in a condition that it's good enough to rent. Why? Because something can happen in your personal life and all of a sudden you decide you don't want to go forward with the rental, you want to hold off. That rent is going to allow you to basically, cover most of your carrying costs on that property. Also, let's say the market slows down a little bit, right? Now you're not desperate to dump the property or maybe take another loss. So we try to make sure that it's good enough to rent in its current condition. That's going to be huge. And then also makes it a lot easier to sell if we wanted to sell it, if we decided to change our mind. And then thirdly, very, very critical, and this is one where I see probably the most mistakes made on, is that if we're considering for a renovation, it has to have the right footprint. What that means is that if you see a house that you're planning on doing a kitchen and a washroom and it needs windows and it needs a roof, and then you're thinking it needs an addition, every single time I met with anybody, I said, okay, what was your total cost? And the total cost that they spent to do all of that, it would have been cheaper to build a house brand new. Okay? So it doesn't make sense to do that kind of renovation, right? Now, when does it make sense? Okay, there is an ideal time, and I know people will do it, and sometimes they're just a little smarter, right? Because if you're doing this and you're doing this often, and you're building a house from the ground up, guess what happens? Right? They're going to say it's a business. If it's a business, you have to pay HST. Argument's sake, it's a $2-3 million house. That could be $250,000, $350,000 in HST. So by being able to take a house that had the right footprint, keep a part of it, and then build on top of it, when you go to sell it, we're going to market it as a new house. We're not going to lie. We're going to say, yeah, that's got part of the existing foundation, but infrastructure, everything on this house is new, right? Insulation, the best insulation, scrape foam, not everything. But now we avoid the HST. So that, again, that's another course that we do, like literally on the day, okay? Okay, so I've already talked about, see, this is why we're going to go real quick. I said, know your true costs, right? So you know that stuff that you see on TV is not real. How are you going to find out? Start off with a checklist. Not about what you're going to do to improve the house, all right, to make it great. Figure out what you need to do to actually fix the deficiencies it currently has. Because everybody gets all excited, I'm going to put a new kitchen, I'm going to do this. No. The house right now needs a roof, it's got mold, we got to get that remedied. You know what, it needs a fence in the back. They're not excited about those things because there's no, we're just going to make it so pretty and somebody's going to buy it based on that. No, we have to remove all those objections, those concerns. The next thing is, what do we have here? Let me look at the cost. Oh yeah, then you want to factor in the carrying costs that you actually, during the period. So know what you're going to pay on financing. Also understand how long it's going to take. It's not how long it takes you to do the reno. So when you put it on the market, how long is it going to take to sell? When it sells, how long is it going to take to close? You need to factor all that in as part of your cost. Again, very basic, right? And then finally, when you're figuring out the cost, another huge mistake, and honestly, one of the easiest ones to fix. Everybody that comes up with a budget and they have a budget to do their renovation, and then at the very end they're like, yeah, I don't have any money for staging, right? So they expect a realtor to do it, right? Some realtors will do it, right? But they may not do it properly, or they may charge extra for it, or maybe they're going to do it because they're a discount type broker that doesn't do it. Maybe they don't have the skill set to sell. But either way, for the most part, is I see these houses that are not staged, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit about that afterward when it comes to selling home, okay? Okay? So, you don't want to be this guy, right? I'm stuck with the house at the very end, right? So you want to avoid these costly mistakes. Remember I said don't be a trailblazer? But at the very first slide I said, what do? We're always setting all these huge precedents, right? But we don't base our decisions when we engage in those projects based on that outcome. We have more reasonable expectations, and that is what we're basing the decision on. Yeah, we go for the gusto, right? But we're very conservative in our numbers when we're making our estimates and what our expectations are. So if you're thinking, no, I know the most expensive house in this area sold for $1 million, but I'm special, my house is going to be special, and I'm going to get 1.2, that's the wrong way of thinking, all right? So, secondly, well, I guess the same thing, we're already talking about the precedent being set. This is also very, very important. Do not chase the deal, okay? What do I mean by that? All too often, Andrew knows these people really well. Met the nicest family, right? Father and son, both carpenters, are actually going to build a house. And met them and they said, hey, we're going to see what you're doing, really interested. Can you come by and give me some tips? I'm like, yep. So I went over and met them, and here they're building the house. And one of the first questions I asked them was like, why did you buy here? Right? And then they're like, well, my daughter was a real estate agent, right? And I said, I know, who did you buy with, right? And they go, my daughter was a real estate agent. Where does she live? Oh, she's out in Barrie. And then bought Novo. And I'm like, okay, well, why'd you buy here? Oh, because this was actually the cheapest property right now. Land was typically like $550,000. We got this for $450,000. Had $100,000 the cheapest property, right? And I'm going to tell you, sometimes it makes sense to buy the cheapest property, right? Because I've had a listing one time for $400,000, and I couldn't sell it. And I was even thinking, should I buy it? I'm like, I don't want to be that guy having that cheap property, because I'm thinking always about forcing appreciation on it. But if you buy the cheapest property, it has a lure to it. You know what that lure is? It was the cheapest property. So that property that I could not sell at the time, that I did eventually sell for $935,000, again, it wasn't my property, it was just somebody's primary home, that sold for $395,000 in Oakville, just the southwest Oakville. At the time was the cheapest house. What do you think is the cheapest detached house right now in southwest Oakville? By the way, this wasn't too long ago. This was maybe 3.5 years ago. Yeah, around $750,000 is the cheapest detached house. So if you buy the cheapest house, right, if that's your mentality and that's what you want to do, make sure when you sell it, it's the cheapest house. Because that was the advantage. You just took away the one draw, the one reason why somebody would want to buy it. Because if it's the cheapest house, it's probably for a reason. It's the area that's in. So back to this guy, this is a father and son. They ended up buying this property. It was like very close to government housing. Okay? And first question I asked him is like, what's your cost of construction? Because then I can call bullshit on it. Because a lot of times they don't even know. Right? They've done renos. They've never built a house. He says, oh, we're gonna spend around 300,000. It's a 2,500 square foot home. So I do the math, I'm like 250,000, right? Like, it's just the numbers didn't make sense. I'm like, there's no way. I said, if you could do it, that's amazing, because I know I can't even come close to doing that, right? Even with the trades that I know. So he took on the project. He thought, oh, but I'm doing a lot of it myself, me and my son. Well, because of that, it took longer. So his estimates in terms of his time and his carrying costs were messed up. And all of a sudden, he's carrying this property, carrying this mortgage. Every single month, it's costing thousands. Eventually, he brought in trades to do the work. Finally finishes the house. We fixed a bunch of things that he was already wrong, tried to help as much as possible. But eventually, when he went to go list it, he lost $85,000. He didn't list it with us, by the way. Right? He ended up listing with somebody else and selling it. But he ends up losing, and I think it was close to $85,000, if I remember correctly. Right? Father and son putting all their time and effort. And by the way, if he did nothing to that house, it would be worth $750,000. Right? So that's what was pretty crazy about that. So don't chase the cheapest deal, right? And then stay very well informed during that whole process. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that even though in the beginning you bought the house, you did this, it's constantly as you're going through this process. From the day that you purchased it to the day that you closed, you want to know what's going on in the market, what's sold, what just got listed, right? You care more about what's sold than what got listed. But you want to know because that's going to dictate what you do. Am I going to spend more money? Am I going to am I going to change my strategy? All the way through to when your house is ready to be listed. We do not come up with a price on the house, like a true price on the house, until the day I actually see the video and the pictures and I look at what we're competing against. That's when we come down with the price. People always not thinking like, I go through the house, so what should we list it at? I'm like, you're like 3 months out, right? I can't tell you that exact number, because tomorrow somebody might list the property and sell it for like $500,000 more. That'll be a lot different than what I tell you now. And I don't want you to hold me to any number, but I can give you, if it was today, what we would base it off is this, but it might be very different tomorrow. Right? Okay, guys, so now how many people said they were actually interested in doing custom builds? Okay, so again, very high level information on it. And so yeah, here, I'm gonna ask you a quick question, because this is gonna make you think, okay? Imagine you're doing your renovation, and all of a sudden you're now trying to decide what kind of vent covers you're going to put on your air ducts, right? Okay, I want you to think about this, okay? I get the call, hey Ruben, look, can you meet with me? I'm making a really critical decision right now. I don't know if I should go with this one or this one, right? And I'm like, okay, how much is it? Like, what is that? That's a decent one, right? Now, if I'm doing a $3 million house, I'm not gonna go with a Home Depot $7 vent cover, right? But they're like, no, there's this other one, stainless steel, stick ridge, it's like this, that's great, and it's $50. And there's this other one that's $30, right? But this is better for these features. I said, okay, I understand. So let me ask you a question. Tell me somebody that you recently went to go visit their home. Okay? You went through their house, okay? And I want you to tell me what kind of vent covers did they have? They can't. Because your problem is you're so focused on the house and you're forgetting that this house, when we're done, it's going to have furniture. It's going to have they're not looking at vent covers, right? So a lot of times, like people, the only time that makes sense with a vent cover, if it's in an area like, for example, it's a master ensuite and it's right next to a Roman tub or like a freestanding tub and your eyes are going to be drawn there, then we'll do something. But for the most part in the room, we don't want to spend money there. So you got to be really strategic. And that applies to all the decisions that you're making, okay? What else? No one cares? That's it. Okay? So I talked about this already. So if you're going to actually do a build, sometimes that's why you want to consider a reno, right? Is because there's HST implications when you're doing a build. If you do enough of these, revenue can is going to come after you.
Isn't it still apply to do more than 90%?
Yep. So that's exactly why we're doing a reno. Yeah. So if you have more than if you're doing a renovation, it's more. And I don't know exactly the numbers. I'll tell you. Every time we get to stuff like that, especially when we're getting to that point, we typically engage our accountant, right? Because I don't want to give any because it's constantly changing. So, but yeah, my understanding is around 90%. So generally, good house. If we have a listing right now on Sharon Drive, it's a house that's listed at like you can pick it up for about $940,000. But where it's situated in the area, this house is for $2.2 million. This house has a double car garage. Problem is none of these other buyers, right, with these other agents get it. Where that garage is, they're going to be able to keep that garage, the back part of the back wall. There it is. So for a builder, that's huge, right? They're not just looking at it, they just saved $250,000 on that particular purchase, right? So, and they don't get it. I'm telling you, they don't, right? So, and it sounds like when I'm saying they're builders, and it's everybody. It's not me being critical. It's just, well, maybe it is. So either way, the other thing is understand the permit process, right? So you know, sometimes if you don't know how long that's gonna take, so that's why when we buy a property, we try to have a late closing. We put clauses in it that's, the seller allows us to turn around and start applying for applications based on their behalf, right? So that we're getting work done. We try to avoid houses that are backing up to conservation, because we don't want to deal with the conservation authority. That's an absolute nightmare, right? So there's a lot of things related to that. The actual permit process, again, a lot of people here seem pretty educated, so you're going to be familiar with that. But generally, a permit process could take, I would tell you, no less than 60 days, generally 30, and if you're going for a new build, I tell you, it could even be 6 months, all right? The one that we saw in Cedar Grove, the one in the beginning, remember I offered to buy the guy out, because he was getting upset? That project almost took a year before we got permits. The good thing is the house was good enough that we can rent out, and he was actually getting cash back covering his cost, all right? And then, oh, huge. When you are ready to, you're all excited, you're building your dream home. It's for you and your family, all right? And you're like, I asked the question, well, what do you guys need in square footage? And they're like, as soon as they tell me I need 4,000, right? I say, okay, let's scale that down. No, you don't understand. I need 4,000 square feet, all right? You have a question?
Oh, you keep saying that people are coming to you before they're even getting a house. Are you actually building for people?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of builders, and what'll happen is I'll help them find the land, and then after, at that point, generally work with them on the vision of what they should be building, what it would cost, and then I'm recommending some of the key builders that we work with.
Okay.
Sometimes they have their own builder, right?
Right.
But I don't build for anybody.
Okay.
right?
You
I'm
only
the person that
build
builds
for
myself.
yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
And you just act as a consultant.
But I basically we take what we do for ourselves, and we basically apply that to all the clients that we work with. Okay, so, but this is huge. You guys know, you have remember school, you had a
Wait, you
homework.
finish your thought. You're saying they come to you and say, I need 4,000 square
Yeah,
feet.
that's the point I'm making, so thank you. So basically, you have a homework assignment. It's due in a week, all right? So because you have a week, you allot yourself, so it takes you almost a week to get it done, right? So you're gonna take up the time that you're given. If you say you're gonna start out with 4,000 square feet and you go to an architect, you're gonna take up to 4,000 square feet. I guarantee you, your first draft that you're gonna get back, you're like, yeah, I need a bigger closet. Yeah, I need like it'd be nice if the pantry was a bit bigger, powder room's a bit small. So you start tweaking. So it goes from 4,000, and all of a sudden it jumps up to 4,200. Always. Unless you're already working with a confined space. Like if you're working on a rental, the square footage is the same. But if you're starting off in a blank canvas, I've never seen a plan start off with square footage and end with the same square footage. It always grows. So what I want you to do is to limit yourself to something smaller than what you think you originally need, because what's going to do, it's going to force the architect to come up with something more efficient, that then you can add the square footage. Because I'm going to tell you, that extra 200-300 square feet, depending on what you're building, could end up costing you 100, 150,000, 200,000 more, or even a lot more if it's a lot more square footage. So always try to keep your requirements really small in the beginning, because they will grow as you start going through that planning process. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to actually have Andrea come up. So that basically when we're talking about, again, you saw not. Again, it's all in the interest of time. There's other courses that would go into depth for that. But now I want you to think. You've gone through the process. You found the property source that you did all the right things. Now you're actually putting it on the market. How do you ensure that you're going to be able to sell it for a top dollar? What are the common mistakes that we're seeing people make? Because as I said, it's not what sold, it's why it sold, and then it's also looking at stuff that didn't sell and asking the question of why it didn't sell. Because all too often, I'll see a house that's really good, and it doesn't sell. And people don't get it. And then when you ask them, they make up things. Oh, it's because it's a corner lot. That's not the reason why it didn't sell, but all of a sudden it becomes a fact. It's because it's a corner lot, right? So I'll let Andrea take over.
Okay. So as Ruben said, now you're at the point where you finished your renovation or you finished your build, and this is the most important part where you're now going to sell the property. So there's certain key strategies that we look for when we're listing a home that we believe help sell our houses faster and for more money. But these are also some common listing mistakes that we also see as to why a house sits there for longer or maybe doesn't sell. And as Ruben said, this could be a great home and you just don't know why. Okay, so we're going to go into the first one. A lot of homes are really overpriced. And there's a couple factors that go into this. Sometimes it's the seller themselves that they're dead set that this is the price that they're going to sell their home for. If some of the agents sitting in the room, you know that seller, and there's nothing you can do, no matter what you present them with, this is what they're gonna sell it for. Sometimes it's just not being educated on the market. It may be an outside agent. But you can see this house. This is a house in Burlington. Look at how many price drops it had. Originally listed at 1.579 million, ended up selling for 1.3 million. Right? It's actually, when you look at it on the inside, it's actually quite a nice home. The pictures itself look like it was probably taken on the agent's own camera, so it doesn't showcase anything nice about the home. A vacant home. So you've gone through the expense of doing a large renovation, maybe you've spent $150,000, $200,000, or maybe you've spent $900,000 doing a full new build. But then you don't want to spend that extra $5,000, $10,000 to actually stage the property. This can make such a huge difference when you're listing a home, because not everybody has the vision that you had when you were building the property, that, you know, oh, there's going to be a big, beautiful sectional couch here, and I can see this kind of a harvest table or whatever it may be. This is a small scale example, but these are 2 bedrooms of homes that are currently listed for sale right now in Oakville. You know, you're obviously way more drawn to the house to the bedroom that has a beautiful furnished room. Okay, and another point about staging, and this might be more relevant to if you've now moved into your renovation and you've lived there for a few years. Don't be offended if your agent wants you to stage your home, right? Because your taste may not be what's gonna help sell the property, or it may not go with the style of the home, but it really portrays or gives you a feel of the property, okay? So people can picture, people like pretty things, okay? They're drawn to stuff like that. The execution of a sale is huge, and we see this a lot. So this is a home currently listed for sale in Alton Village in Burlington, so Appleby and Dundas area, listed for just under 1.2 million. It's listed by a Toronto agent who may not understand the market as well, but one of the biggest problems about this property is that it's only listed on the Toronto board. So when Mary pulled up the system earlier where she did a search, you can't find this house on that search system. So for most agents looking in Burlington, or local agents, we will be using that system, and this house can't be found. Okay, so that's you need maximum exposure for your properties. Look at agent is gonna put your property on multiple boards, right? So, you know, we will always put it on our matrix system here, but we will also have it on the Toronto board too. So you just want to get the most amount of exposure. Mainly though, you don't want to leave the most important area out. This one's my favorite. So inaccuracies in the listing. I went on the board and I searched all of Halton, so Oakville, Milton, and Burlington, and I searched for properties that had 0 bedrooms. So unless it's a vacant piece of land, most homes have at least 1 bedroom. So there's 6 properties on the board, and you've told them you're looking for a 2-bedroom home in Oakville. This home backs onto the lake. It's on a really beautiful street. So if they punch in that criteria, this home isn't gonna come up. If they have an email search set up to you with certain criteria and the parameters, this home isn't gonna be sent to you. So a lot of people may not be seeing this property, and it's been on the market for a long time. Some of these other houses also have 0 bedrooms and 0 baths. So, you know, like just such a small thing, but you've now taken out such a big market of people, of potential buyers that are gonna see that property. The description is really critical as well. So you want this to be more the differentiator in the home compared to other properties on the market. There's always that typical, just call it the typical realtor description. 4 bedrooms, quiet core, granite countertops, blah, 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 right? Like we've all seen it, and it's what you want to avoid 100%.